What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very simple but important thing that we need to talk about, and that is player UI and how you design your UI. I've played WoW for better part of like 12 years now, and I've seen good UIs, I've seen horrendous UIs, and the vast majority of players, specifically classic players, tend to gravitate to the horrendous UIs, specifically Wrath and Classic Andes. I've seen people using the base UI with no other add-ons, which is perfectly fine if that's your thing. And then I've seen people play with something akin to a fighter pilot UI that basically you have no idea what's going on at any given time besides the flashing numbers. So I don't know how anybody plays like that. And I got some examples here that I'm gonna throw up on the screen real quick. Don't ever be this, guys. Do not ever be these people. Do not have your UI like this. You are not going to be a good, effective player and or healer like this. Because one, yes, you can throw out heals. Yes, you know where your keybinds are. But one of the bigger things that I've noticed is with WoW players is raid awareness and lack thereof. A lot of people lack raid awareness of what's going on around them, what's going on near them, what's happening, what's blowing up, where they need to be standing. And a lot of that can be akin to or attested to their dog shit UIs that are blocking half the screen so they don't know what effects are on them, what effects are on the enemy, what effects are on players, what AoEs are happening on top of them, if there's fire, if there's not fire, if they're in poison, if their health is going down, because their UI looks like some sort of advanced calculus and or fighter jet, like I said earlier. So let's jump right into it and take a look at these examples and just break down everything that's wrong with them. And then we're going to go over what's good UI, the add-ons I use, and how to set it up to get it to look a little bit like what I use. I think it's more important before we break down the UIs that I showed a second ago. I think we get to people to understand what areas are important to look at on the screen. The most important area in general is where the action is happening, which will always be here in the center of the screen. This is the most important area. This is the area you want to have the least amount of clutter as possible. You want to be constantly able to see what's going on here at a glance. And so you don't want to be putting a bunch of stuff here, a bunch of numbers popping up everywhere. You don't want that. That is the last thing you want. The next thing is, if you're a DPS, you will very infrequently need to be looking at raid frames, seeing what's going on there. So I will generally like to keep the raid frames over here off to the side, just so it's out of the way, but it's still kind of, I can just quickly look over out of my peripheral and be able to see them. Party frames, I use grid, which I will include a list of add-ons at the end here once I actually show you what it looks like. This is the kind of like a base UI. My unit frames are down here because of I had to turn off everything just so you guys could see it. And my target frames are over here just because it also helped me keep an eye on it. Let me turn on my add-ons here, and then we can see what my UI looks like. So you can get a general idea of what I'm talking about what a good UI looks like that's not cluttered. So at its purest, this is what my UI looks like. It's very simple, very clean, and very good for DPS in general because it doesn't take your eyes off of the action. You can see what's going on. You can see what mechanics are coming at you. And it's very helpful. I want to go over those UIs that I showed you a second ago before I break this all down and we go over my add-ons and how I position things and why I position things there. So let's check this out real quick. So as I was saying a second ago, clutter is just a killer. This is the UI of a balanced druid in Wrath of the Lich King, and they're fighting Hodir. Keep in mind the balanced druid rotation is at most 3 buttons in Wrath of the Lich King. So what is going on here? A whole lot of nothing. We got raid icons screaming at us here. We got raid frames here for a DPS class that really should only be DPSing because they can't throw heals out as effective as other classes or anything like that, really. And they're tracking everybody's buff. but inefficiently. Well, these are actually their buffs. They're not even tracking other people's buffs. These are all their buffs because it's Wrath. I forgot. But yeah, they have all their buffs over here. But as you can see, it's being hidden behind everything. So I'm sure based on the way they have it sorted on time remaining. So that means they can't even see their procs going off. Then right here, they have an eclipse timer. Yeah, it's just, there's so much going on this UI that it's so, like, I can already tell this player doesn't know what's going on. They cannot tell. What is Starmie? Where is Starmie on the meter? Very low, because they have so much going on their screen and they cannot keep track of it effectively. Let's move on to the next one. Here we have a Holy Paladin. This Holy Paladin, I can already tell you what's wrong here is the fact that their healing frames are off to the side here. Meaning that during every boss mechanic, during every time they have to move, during every slime spray, every puddle, they are turning their head is over here, keeping track of everything. So they're looking to the left of their screen, completely ignoring every raid mechanic happening because they have to keep track of players' health. If I were this healer, for example, I would take these healing frames, I would put this down here in the middle of my screen so I could still see what's happening in the middle, and I would take my hotbars and move them. Probably actually, if they had to utilize, there's so many things here that could be improved on, but the healing frames could go here, your hotbars could go here. You could get rid of all of these useless information. You don't need to know raid HPS at all times. You don't need to know raid DPS at all times. You don't need 2 healing bars. You don't need all these bars telling you all this information. There's just a lot of wasted space here. This is the same druid, I think. I copied this image twice. All right, here's an elemental shaman. Again, just a lot of clutter going on the screen. Buffs are covering events happening over here. Just meters covering things over here. Target bars covering the actual boss. Just, again, more wasted space, more like clutter. If you play at this resolution, you're kind of already like limiting yourself in space. So I suggest either playing at a higher resolution or having less add-ons or making your UI scale smaller. And this is what everybody thinks the WoW UI looks like because of those people that I just showed you. So now that we've seen this, we've seen what bad UIs are. You saw how my UI looks like. And a lot of people have been asking me to link my UI. So let's talk about my UI. Let's break it down for you people. I'll show you the add-ons that I use. I'll throw a bunch of stuff out at you that you'll probably gonna forget and have to reference this video like 16 times. So, and I'll even throw a timestamp down below just so you can go straight to this part. Let's kick off going over my UI with the add-on list of my add-ons. I used basically the standard of what every Turtle WoW player should be using. I use Lazy Pigs, Action Bar Profiles, which is an add-on that lets you save and set up profiles for your action bars in case you're switching specs. In my case, it's mainly switching between Ret and Protection or Enhancement and Tank Hands. Ox for auction trading, better stats for just getting a better idea of the stats you use or how the stats affect you. Because in Classic, stats are very badly designed. We can look at that in a second. Decursive, just so I can easily just click and get rid of all the curses off. Curses, poisons, everything that people have on them. Just a cleanse bar. The DPS Mate plugins for DPS Mate, which is basically Turtle WoW's version of Details. Very useful, very good for tracking. Don't use TWoW threat, or DPS Mate threat. Don't like it. KLH threat. I tested it out. I did not like it. Probably because I'm too stupid. Maybe somebody else can maybe explain to me how to use it a little bit better. Mail for mail management, not grid. These are my unit frames over here and my raid frames and also my party frames. I keep them over here on my DPS and tanks mainly because I don't need them that often. For my healers, I generally will push them here and slide this. I will put them back here so I have access to everybody that's taking damage. And then I'll just adjust this here on my unit frames up. So let's move this back down here. So that's how I adjust that for healing. And we use Outfitter to change gear sets. Unit XP SV3, it's an add-on that's very good for unit frame management and targeting. Turtle Dragonflight is part of my hybrid UI. PF Quest, obvious reasons, just because I'm leveling right now and it's probably the best quest helper for Turtle WoW. PF UI, one of the greatest UIs and bars. I use it in conjunction with Turtle Dragonfly just because I like the aesthetic of Turtle Dragonfly better, and I try to get as close to I hate using this word, but an OEM feel for the UI, just like a UI that's very like as if it was part of the game. Clever Roy's for Super WoW, so I can make macros a lot better. Modern map markers, TW threat, best threat meter I've used, and I love it. Keep it over here on to the side, and then big wigs for obvious reasons. So that is my add-on list, and I'm going to show you how to configure this to get it to look just like this. So in case you want to have a very minimalist and functional UI. So let me pause here, and then I will show you guys the layouts. So here is the positioning for everything where I have it on for PF UI. Generally, I had the group frames here. I have disabled group frames, so you can't really see them. So they're still there. Obviously, I can't delete these without changing a lot of stuff. So I just turn off the whole party frame. I keep my buffs up here slightly off center just so I can get a better view of them. Weapon buffs are separate. Debuffs are a little bit more down so I can see debuffs at just quickly glancing and not having to take my eyes off the screen. Loot, obviously, because I'm a loot goblin right here. Target cast bar and player cast bar. We can move these down a little bit just so that they're not literally on top of each other. Let me go back over there. And then pet frames, I keep them over here. And then focus target bar over here. I have my this is from Turtle Dragonflight. I moved the player frame and the target frame down here just because I like to not have to turn my head all the way up to the corner to see stuff. I like to have it down here just so I can quickly glance at it. And then action bars, obviously, I have them all down here at the bottom just to get them off the screen. This is the kicker. So like people like to have their action bars like a little bit higher just so they can see them better. I know where all my key binds are. I know where my binds are, so I'm not really looking at my bars that often. And that is a whole separate video on its own, learning key binding and learning finger positioning, everything on your keyboard. But yeah, this is the PF UI design. To get the UI to be able to cross over like this, you'll need to import my UI config. That way you don't have to actually go through and like disable all these components to make it work with Turtle Dragonflight. With Turtle Dragonflight, if you hold shift and control, you can drag around your unit frames. I like to keep them here, so about 3 squares, it looks like. Yeah, close enough to 3 squares, right about there. It's hard to get it centered. And I like to move my target frame down here. For the Turtle Dragonflight settings, I will keep cooldown numbers on. I'll have them all checked off like this. I'll go slow through here so you can either follow along or just pause at each section and turn them off and click off as needed. I also moved the XP bar here while I'm leveling. Sometimes I just delete it completely or just move it off screen somewhere. Don't need it. Mini map in the corner, obviously. I put my threat meter off to the corner just because I don't need it that often and I can just at a quick glance see it. Same with the DPS. I don't really need it, but it's nice to have after the fight just to see while you're moving from boss to boss. And that at the core is the UI that I use. It's not complicated. It's not crazy. I'm going to put a paste bin in the description so you guys can just import the string. And the way you would do that is you go to PF UI, share, and then you would delete whatever you have in here. And then you can just, once you delete it, you can just paste my string, decode, and then import. And it'll change the configuration to this. I think there's one extra step here. So actually, when we do share and decode, we'll do import. Some settings need to reload. Did you guys take effect? You want to, yep, and we'll just do yes. Actually, ignore layout. We don't want that checked. We want that unchecked, actually, as well. And that is basically it. I will also have a zip file to these add-ons in the description so you can download them all as needed. There's, if you see duplicate name files in there, that's not intentional. I accidentally forked my UI once when I was copying files, so you can just ignore that, or you can download them yourself from the Turtle Wow add-ons website, which I will also have linked below. But yeah, guys, that's basically it for the UI. If you have any questions, just DM me in game, DM me on Discord. The Discord's down below. If you have any questions, concerns, hit me up in the comments. I'll try to reply to them as best I can. But until the next time, guys, peace.